Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the first episode of our special stage podcast on RallySport Magazine. We thank you for joining us on this inaugural episode. And firstly, we've got to thank our subscribers for making this podcast happen, as we're wanting to increase the value and the importance of news across rallying in Australia. And it's great to be able to talk about it on a fortnightly basis in a low-key, informal chat sort of a scenario. And it's good to have Peter Whitten with me here to talk about Monte Carlo and all things rallying at the minute. How are you going?
Good, Luke. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. I've just come off an interview with Harry Bates, so that'll be coming up a little bit later on in the podcast, which is exciting because he chats about obviously his 2022 season as well as the crash that ended his championship hopes and moving forward into this season, which is really exciting. And I'm looking forward to everybody being able to listen to that one.
Yeah, it sounds great, and I think it's we're all pretty excited about rallying getting up and going again for 2023 after what seems like a long period of the off season.
Yeah, it always feels that way. It's a long off season, but I think as well, because the rally season finished with such a flourish, we sort of almost needed the break with the Coffs Coast Rally being at the end of November, and then the Alpine Rally just a week later. It feels as though it was so busy towards the end of the year that everybody just had to rest up and reload for this year.
I think that's probably right too, and I think the fact that, as you said, it was so busy at the end of the year, and our major events probably don't get underway until early March, so it's given competitors and teams a little bit of time to regroup and to rebuild their cars and to restock their bank accounts, I think.
Yes, I think that's the case across the board. And in terms of the name of this podcast, the Special Stage podcast, it was actually an old monthly column that appeared in our old newspaper, Australian Rally Sport News, that has inspired that name. I think you wrote a lot of those Special Stage columns from, I don't know, maybe the early 90s all the way through, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it probably started late '89 when we had the first special stage column. And in actual fact, I mean, my idea back in 1989 when we started the magazine, or sorry, the newspaper back then, was to actually call it Special Stage. But a couple of people outside rallying thought at the time that it might have been a newspaper about acting and theatre. So we changed it from Special Stage to Australian Rally Sport News, or ARN as most people came to know it by. But I think Special Stage still has a very important part in rallying as we go forward.
Yeah, and if you've come here looking for acting and theatre content, I think you've already turned off by now. So we're talking about Rally 2 cars and WRC2 and WRC2 Masters. So that goes over a lot of rally people's heads. So we don't blame you if it does for you as well. One thing off the top of my head, Sebastien Ogier, we're going to start with Monte Carlo. It was, I don't want to say it was a boring Monte Carlo, but in terms of what we come to expect from Monte Carlo, it probably was.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, congratulations to Seb Ogier. I mean, he, along with Sebastian Loeb, is the Monte Carlo master. But right from the very first stage, I mean, he hit the front, and he was never headed from then on in. And I think with Monte Carlo, we're always looking for a rally that's has really, really tough weather conditions with snow and ice and rain and all sorts of stuff. And we just didn't see that this year. So it was pretty much a flat out tarmac rally from the start to the finish.
That's right. And you, I think, were at Rally Sweden when there was no snow. It was sort of the rally was run, but it wasn't really the rally in terms of what everybody expects. So it's hard to really get interested if it's not a classic Monte Carlo.
Yeah, I went, as you say, I went to Sweden in 2020 as one of my bucket list things, and always wanted to see a rally in the snow. And of course, we got there and there was no snow. There's a lot of the stages were cancelled because of that reason, and it pretty much was a gravel rally apart from two or three sections that had snow. But yeah, it really does take away from what spectators are looking for, and I guess it just goes to show how dependent we are on the weather for Monte Carlo and Sweden. It doesn't matter so much for the gravel events and the tarmac events, but those two at the start of the year, if they don't provide the conditions that you're hoping for, as you say, it can be boring.
And we have been spoiled well at the time as well. I think we need to remember that too, because Monty is a classic and it's always throwing up crazy weather. So if there's one in 10 years that might be a little bit below par, then I think we can live with that, can't we?
I think so, yeah. But again, I think Monte Carlo, as we said, was pretty much a dry tarmac event, and Sebastien Ogier, and in particular, the Toyotas showed their dominance by winning 16 of the 18 stages, and really just goes to show that they're the world champions for a reason.
And for Alvin Evans, I think they've done a lot of work over the off season to get him and the car working a lot better as a partnership, because throughout last year we struggled a lot, but as soon as Monte Carlo started, he was right near the front. And if it wasn't for his puncture, which I believe was on day two, it was going to be a much closer battle at the front, particularly for those podium places.
Yeah, as you said, Luke, the team I think did a lot of work on the chassis and the suspension and stuff to get the car to Evans's liking. As we know, he finished runner-up in the championship in 2020 and 2021, but really last year was nowhere near the pace of his teammates. So it's good to see him back up the front again, and it promises to be a real good fight this year.
And for Robin Perra, he was pretty good too. Do you like his
Wow.
new hair? That's one thing that we can discuss.
I'm not a fan of the perm. But there you go. He's a young 22-year-old, and my fashion sense and style is a lot different to his. So good on him for giving it a crack.
Yeah, that's it. And again, he was just very fast and showed why he was world champion last year. And I think he'll be again right near the top again. And although he'll be opening the road in Sweden, he's probably almost a favourite to win there, I think.
I think so. Yeah, as you know, he won there last year and was pretty dominant. So I don't think starting first on the road will be too big an issue, unless there is lots and lots of snow, and we're still to find that out.
That's right. And for Hyundai, Neuville, Lappi, and Sordo were their three chargers in Monte Carlo. Neuville was really, again, the only one who was happy with his I-20. Lappi had moved there, of course, from Toyota last year, but Danny Sordo was really the one who was surprisingly off the pace.
Really off the pace, and as you say, that was a big surprise. It's strange, isn't it? I mean, Danny's always been super fast on tarmac, which is his surface of choice, and with a dry tarmac rally like Monte Carlo was, everybody expected he would be certainly up there in the top five, if not the top three. But for whatever reason was, he just wasn't near it.
M Sport, they've lowered their number of cars this year, but supposedly have increased their quality. And of course, the quality's gone up when you bring in Oyt Tanak, the 2019 world champion. They've got Pierre-Louis Loubet as well. He had a up and down weekend. He was on the pace early, but then really struggled to get to grips with the car after that. Clearly, he had the power steering issue on the Saturday. And then I believe it was a water pump failure on Sunday, which meant he was out before he should have been. And then Jordan Sertoritis, which you've put in your 5 things article this week, that perhaps he should be in a Rally 2 car, because he is well off the pace.
Yeah, he is. I mean, M Sport had a reasonable event. I mean, I'm sure they're not happy with the results. Tanak was fifth, which is probably lower than expected. But again, like Lappi, he hasn't driven that car competitively before, and once he did dial it up on the last stage, he was second on the power stage and nearly won it. So I think that's good news for them. Yeah, Lube had some reliability issues and a couple of indiscretions, and Sertorides, well, I mean, he's a privateer, so he's never likely to score points, in my opinion. Yeah, good on him for having a crack and having the money to drive one of those cars. But wouldn't it be great to see him put that money into an Andreas Mikkelsen or a Sami Piari or a Caden Padden or someone like that who could actually get some value out of it?
Yeah, I do agree with that. He's one as well that appeared at Rally Australia a number of times. He was, I think, at Rally Australia for 3 or 4 years straight in a varying number of cars, and yeah, wasn't near the pace, but you can't blame him for wanting to drive the fastest rally car in the world on one of the best rallies ever. So
I sometimes wonder though, because I mean, surely a rich privateer can't come and grab a Formula One car and go and compete at the top level. Obviously, there's only so many places on the grid, and Sertorides is obviously has the cash, but the rules currently allow him to go and drive in that category. And even though he ended up finishing 34th or 30th or something like that, it was well down the list and about 13 minutes off the pace. He was still starting first on the road every day and getting good coverage for his sponsors. So, as I said, good on him, but maybe a bit of a look at the rules needs to be taken place as to who can drive those cars.
And on to WRC2 now. It was a dominant event for Nikolai Greisen in the brand new Skoda, which sounds a bit different to the old one, that's for sure. But its speed was there for all to see. He was literally dominating the event until he had a puncture on the last stage of Saturday. And you could say on his stage times won the event, but was hit with a 5-second penalty, which dropped him, out of first place, which has really sparked some debate on social media about, how it should have been dealt with. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, most people may have seen the video by now, and Greisen cut a corner by, I don't know, 3 metres. Was protested after the event by the Citroen team of Johan Rossel, and was subsequently given a 5-second penalty. Now, the 5 seconds wouldn't have even been the gain that he got for the short corner cutting. I don't know where that sits. I mean, the rules are the rules, but if we're going to that sort of length to award victories, it's a bit out of the league for mine. I think very, very, very sorry for Nikolai Greisen. He was the clear leader and the winner of the event. So unfortunate for him. What about your thoughts?
Yeah, rules are rules. But if you imagine, what if Sebastien Ogier had taken a cut like that and he won the rally by 5 seconds or less than 5 seconds? All of a sudden that blows up into a huge, huge thing. Whereas when it's almost tucked away in WRC2, it doesn't matter all that much. It's, really hard to know where the line is because, as you say, the offence didn't gain Nikolai Greisen 5 seconds, but rules are rules. You got to keep all, or at least one wheel on the road when you're talking about cutting corners.
I think M Sport boss Rich Milner probably summed it up best when he commented on the WRC's post and basically said, "Come on, WRC, we're better than this." So I think it's a very poor penalty. Maybe there should have been a fine, or I'm not sure what the penalty should have been, but it seemed a bit extreme to take the victory away. But having said all that, even though he wasn't eligible for WRC2 in this event, Oliver Solberg, driving the new Skoda for the first time, actually won 10 of the 18 stages. So just goes to show that come Sweden, when he's actually entering WRC2, he could be the man to catch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And one person who was a little bit disappointing was Adrian Formeau in the M Sport Fiesta Rally 2. He just wasn't really there on the pace, regardless of what stage it was. He just wasn't near the front, which is possibly understandable. He's come from a Rally 1 car like Oliver Solberg has, but the Ford is an older car now. It's probably 3 years old, almost 4 years old. But it's tricky to know where Formeau will stand, as that is one of his point scoring rounds. So he's got to work from that if he's going to chase that title.
Yeah, I think it probably says more about M Sport and the Fiesta and where it's at than it does about Formeau. Listening to one of the other podcasts leading into the event, George Donaldson picked Formeau as the absolute clear favourite and was going to win easily in WRC2. But I think the fact that the Fiesta is, okay, it's a Ford factory car in some respects, but it's a customer built car or a privately built car through M Sport. Whereas the new Skoda is totally built by the factory, and it's Skoda's only association in the WRC. It's probably not surprising for mine that the Skoda is the pick of the cars. I think, as you say, the Fiesta's a little bit old now, and clearly they're probably suffering from that too.
And for the rest of the season, like we touched on earlier, it moves to Rally Sweden. And then we go on to Mexico, Croatia, and Portugal. Initially, though, for Sweden, where do you think things line up? I've mentioned earlier that I think Rovanperä will win Sweden. I think that's pretty clear in my eyes. Are you of the same opinion?
It's hard to know, actually. I mean, we've seen today that's come out in the news that some of the drivers are doing some snow rallies in the lead up to the event. So Lappi is doing an event in Finland, and I think Tanak's doing one in Estonia as well. So they'll certainly gain a lot from doing that and getting used to the conditions. But Rovanperä is probably the favourite, but I certainly wouldn't put it past either Neuville or Tanak to be right up there as well.
And you mentioned quickly there are a couple of news items that we've covered on RallySport Magazine so far. this week. You spoke about Lappi and Tanak competing in European national championship rounds. Katsuta is doing the same as well. He's competing in the same event as what Esa-Pekka Lappi will do, which is the second round of the Finnish national championship. Australian co-driver Dale Moscott will also compete in that event as he prepares for Rally Sweden. So that'll be something to watch along there. He'll be packing his warm clothes as he heads over there, I'm sure. And there's been some other news come through this week that, are of good importance as we move towards February and the start of the rally season here in Australia.
Yeah, so Rally Launceston is obviously the first round of the Australian Rally Championship, which is coming up towards the end of March. But entries for that rally open next week. First time it's been the opening round of the series as Rally Launceston. In recent years, we've gone to Canberra for that, but Tassie has moved from its mid-winter date back to March, which will be a great thing. And it's good to see them opening the series, and they've got a new sponsor on board with Buckby Skoda, one of the car dealerships in Launceston, coming on board there. So, yeah, it promises to be a big event, and I think the ARC entry this year is looking really good.
That's right. Yeah, there's some new cars and there's some returning people we would hope that are on the entry list. And one of the people who was set to have a new car is Daniel Gonzalez, but we're hearing some things contrary to that. So we're going to be chasing that over the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes on our website for anything about that. Obviously, Daniel competed in the Australian Rally Championship last year aboard a couple of different R5 cars as each were available to him. So we're going to speak to Daniel and see what the story is over the next couple of days. We're not sure whether he's still bringing in the Hyundai i20N Rally 2 car or whether he's moving away. So we've heard a couple of whispers. So we're going to go and chase that one down, and we'll get to the bottom of it and make sure you can read that on our website as soon as we get it. We've also got a feature on Molly Taylor that Liz Swatton's written about all her amazing experiences across the Dakar Rally this year.
Yeah, Liz did a lot of Molly's PR stuff early in her career, certainly when she was driving the Mitsubishi Mirage and a few of those early events. And she's had a really good lengthy chat to Molly about her second Dakar experience and talking about the ins and outs of how it worked and the issues that they faced and some of the weather and dramas and mechanical dramas and things they had to put up with over that 14-day Dakar event. And I think a lot of us will have watched the Dakar on SBS TV every night here in Australia and love the coverage. And certainly the chat with Molly that Liz has done is really a great read.
And the opening round of the Victorian and New South Wales Championship rounds will open at the Mitamissa Mountain Rally at the beginning of March. Entries are now open. So as a round of both the Victorian and New South Wales series, I think there'll be a full field. That'll be a really good contest on a blind rally, which is, I guess, rare in a lot of cases these days.
Yeah, and MIT is one of those events. It's up in the mountains in northeast Victoria. It's about probably an hour and a quarter from Wodonga. It's a difficult event to spectate at because of the region that it's run in and the mountains that it runs through. But it's become very popular with competitors. And as you mentioned, Luke, it's a round of the New South Wales and the Victorian Championship again this year. Entries so far include Jamie Luff from Yass, who's coming down again to do the event for the second time. Aaron and Darren Windus are both competing. They've entered in their Ford Fiesta, so that's really good. And a real cat amongst the pigeons again will be Adrian Stratford, who's running his Honda-powered Toyota Corolla, I should say, which did so well in the Alpine Rally until he had some dramas.
And across in New Zealand at the Otago Rally, a couple of internationals have been confirmed. So Mikko Hirvonen will finally get his chance to do Curry Bush and do those Otago stages, as will Richie Dalton again for the second time, who's renting an R5. So there's plenty of information and stuff over there in New Zealand, which I guess is coming to hand as that event gets closer too.
Yeah, there's, as you say, Mikko Hirvonen has been on the cards to come to Otago for 2 or 3 years now, but COVID and other things continually put that off. But finally, they've locked him in. He'll drive the Rossendale Wines Escort BDA, which is fantastic. Mikko will be really fast, I think, and will really put it to the locals. Richie Dalton hiring Kingsley Jones's Skoda R5. So which is quite a funny one because it's the actual car that Richie drove to eighth place at Rally Australia a few years ago, and also won the Rally of the Bay in Bateman's Bay in it. So it'll be like a bit of a homecoming for Richie. And we probably should mention, Luke, that we've still got some spots left on our VIP spectator tour to the Otago Rally. So if anyone's keen to get over there and have a look at what's widely regarded as one of the best events in the Southern Hemisphere, jump onto the tours page on our website and check it out because, as I said, there's a few spots left and you certainly won't be disappointed.
I look forward to heading on over there again. It's a great event. And Hayden Paddon, the weekend before the Otago Rally, will be in Adelaide at the Motorsport Festival there with his Hyundai Kona EV. It's the same weekend as the first round of the National Championship here, unfortunately. So there's a bit of a clash of dates there. But Hayden will be in Adelaide with that EV car, putting on a show for fans, while the Australian Rally Championship will be down south in Launceston. So if you missed that one, jump on our website. There's some information on him being across in Adelaide for that event.
Yeah, what a shame that we couldn't see Hayden in Tasmania for the opening round of the Australian Championship. But certainly for those who will be in South Australia at the time, it'll be wonderful to see that EV. You and I managed to see that car in action on the super special stage at Rally New Zealand last year, and we can attest to it, how fast that thing is. And had it not been for a broken drive shaft on that stage, Hayden probably would have set the fastest time ahead of all the Rally 1 cars. So he's quite incredible to watch.
That covers most of all the new stuff that we've got on our website. We don't want to give everything away, so head on there, rallysportmag.com. There's lots of stuff there. We've got some features in the works as we move towards the start of the year. Some people have got some new cars coming. There's chats that are worthwhile having with certain drivers and stuff like that. Before we move across to Harry Bates and my interview with him, chatting about his last season and how he's looking forward to this year, next week on our Dust Trails podcast, we'll have Jeff Whitten, who's obviously related to us and our one of our founding members, I guess, of Australian Rally Sport News as it was back in the day. He chats from everything about how it started to, the amazing stories about getting back from Rally Australia in crazy ways, and lots of different stuff about how the magazine has changed and how it was difficult to begin at the start, but it should be a really interesting chat to listen to.
Yeah, it should be, Luke. I'm looking forward to that too. I haven't heard it yet, and I'm sure that the Dad's memories will spark a lot of fond memories for myself as well. Some of those early days when we were struggling to put the newspaper together starting in 1989, it'll come flooding back, I'm sure, and really looking forward to the listen.
So that'll be available to all our RallySport Magazine subscribers on February. So that'll be available to all our RallySport Magazine subscribers on Friday, the 27th of January. And the next episode of Special Stage will be available on Friday, the 10th of February. So as you can imagine by now, we're going week by week as much as we possibly can. So it'll be a Special Stage followed by a Dust Trails episode every week. So there'll be some podcast listening for you every single week from the team here at RallySport Magazine. Before I hand on over to my interview, I guess, with Harry Bates, is there anything else you want to add, Peter, in terms of moving forward into the 2023 year?
I think, Luke, all we just need to say is that if anybody who's listening has a story to tell, or a new car they're building, or an event that they're running, shoot us an email or drop us a message or whatever via the website. We're more than happy to put up any information that you can send us. Send us your news and your photos, and we'll get your story out there as well, because the more information that we can put on the website, the better it is for everyone.
So without further ado, we'll move on to our interview with Harry Bates, and we'll chat to you next time on our Special Stage podcast. It's been great to have you with me, Peter.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, hope everybody's enjoyed this little informal chat that we've had, and looking forward to doing it on a regular basis.
Harry Bates, welcome along. It's great to have you here to chat in this inaugural episode. I hope you're well, mate. Are things good on your side?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
We haven't chatted since midway through the Coffs Coast Rally, so it'll be good to catch up on some things. In terms of the Christmas break, what does that entail for a Toyota ambassador and an Australian champion? Were you able to slow down a little bit? What was happening?
Yeah, between Coffs Harbour and Christmas, we were pretty busy. Toyota wanted to really celebrate the team and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
we'd won the ARC. So that was really nice. We did a couple of trips down to Toyota's headquarters where we were guests and had the car on display, Lewis's championship winning car. And all of the staff down there celebrated with us, which was really cool. So yeah, ended up being a really busy lead up to Christmas, but then over Christmas I managed to get down to the New South Wales South Coast
Mm-hmm.
and spent a bit of time water skiing, mountain biking, and yeah, a lot of our family and friends are down there as well. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
A nice way to slow down and then get ready for a big 2023, I'm sure. We'll begin briefly on the Monte Carlo Rally. Do your WRC weekends follow a similar way to what I guess mine does and many other fans? Do you catch much of the action on WRC Plus?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's always good to jump on WRC Plus, especially when it's a new year and you want to see exactly where everyone stacks up. I do think Monty ended up being pretty predictable and probably not the most exciting Monty edition we've had in a long time. Um, Partly because you always hope with Monty, I reckon, for lots of ice and snow. And this year we didn't get that, but I obviously still enjoyed following it. And yeah, obviously it's going to be another pretty interesting season. Although it does look like Toyota are in a pretty good position if things continue as they did.
Yeah, they are. We've got to touch, obviously, of course, on Sebastien Ogier completing a part-time program and to win like he does. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Oh, so crazy. I mean, yeah, the guy's obviously incredibly good, especially in Monty. He grew up right around where the stages are, so it's very much his home rally. And I think in hindsight, he probably would have been pretty disappointed with 2022 to have not
Mhm.
won any of those outings he had. I just think someone like that, when he retired and took on a part-time program, he wasn't ever going to come back just for fun. He definitely wanted to come back, and the rallies that he chose would have been for a specific reason. It would have been because he thought he could be competitive there. So I reckon, yeah, that would have been a pretty tough pill to swallow for him going there and not actually coming out on top. But obviously, looking now at Monty, the weekend just gone, he was totally dominant. I mean, in my opinion, he did it easily in the end. So that was really good to see. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he can do that at any of the subsequent outings later in the year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And from your perspective, how much would you be hampered, say, if you did a half ARC, I guess 3 rounds as a half ARC? Where do you think your pace would be? Would it be hard to jump back in so quickly, even at an ARC level?
It's a good question. I think if everyone else was doing a full season and you were turning up, particularly to something like Coffs, where if you look at 2022, it was the last round, and by that stage of the year, everyone's well and truly dialed in and on the pace. So it's not so easy to just probably come to that one rally and turn up and be competitive. So yeah, I do think it makes a difference. The only thing I reckon with someone like Ogier is that he's got that much experience and that much of a base of knowledge behind him that if anyone can do it, he probably can.
Mm. I think so too. And did anybody else impress you? I know Alvin Evans impressed me with his speed that he seemed to have upped over the off season. Was he, or perhaps somebody else, somebody that jumped out for you?
Elvin, obviously, yeah, for sure, stepped it up, and I hope he can continue that with the rounds to come. Sweden's always been a good one for him, so if he can really take it to Rovanperä this year, then I think that would give us all the sort of championship fight we need. The other people that I think we can expect to be in the hunt are Thierry and Oit once again. Oit didn't seem totally stoked with the Ford. I gathered from his Power Stage interview that he was being as diplomatic as he could, but he said point blank they have a lot of work to do, and that was obviously evident from the times that he was posting over the weekends. But I'm sure a bit of that's going to be him getting used to the car, and a bit of that's going to be them tuning the car to come to him. So yeah, my ideal WRC sort of the way it plays out from here, I think in an ideal world is that those four, Eurogier, Rovanperä, Evans, and sorry, not Ogier because he's not doing the full season. Rovanperä, Neuville, Evans, and Oy.
Yep.
I really think those four battling it out will make for a good season. So he's hoping.
And on to Sweden in a few weeks, which will come around before we know it. We'll move back now, though, onto your 2022 season. It's fair to say that it started perfectly for you in your GR Yaris, and it had point scoring WRC finish in there at some point as well. But then it came to an abrupt end. I said before that we haven't spoken or interviewed you since November. So we've got to talk about your year and your crash. When you look back on it, do you see it as a positive season, or did the way it finished sort of mean that it was the opposite, or does it drive you for more when it comes around to this year?
To be honest, I don't really see it as a positive season, but the one positive thing I can take from 2022 is that my speed was always good. Every time I turned up, we were showing good pace. If you look back to the start of the year, as you say, it was pretty much a perfect start. We were the quickest team and managed to win in Canberra, Western Australia, and Tasmania. So they were all basically perfect rallies from our side. And then the second half of the season was definitely more of a challenge. Victoria, round 4 of the ARC was a difficult one because we were really, really competitive on pace, but we had a prop shaft failure in the car, so probably lost a rally win there. Then I went to New Zealand, and it's pretty well documented now, but it wasn't the perfect rally for me. I did feel like we got to show glimpses of our pace, but certainly didn't put together an entire rally. And there were a few factors influencing that. One was probably me not having enough time in the car beforehand, and probably not quite getting the setup right for the start of the rally. Another factor was we didn't know enough about the Pirelli tyre before the event, and all of that comes back to testing. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. I definitely wanted to turn up and do more at that rally. And I think from Saturday midday onwards, we were able to post a whole series of stage wins and second places on stages. And that was really what I wanted to do from the start. So to have got there in the end and known that we had it in us, but to have not done it from the start of the event was the toughest thing about that rally. But as you say, it was still a point scoring finish and a pretty good result in WRC2 for my debut. So yeah. And then after that, we went to Rally Adelaide, which was the penultimate round of the Australian Championship, and had an exhaust manifold failure while leading the rally once again. So yeah, it was really from the midpoint of the season onwards where certainly on the ARC side of things, it started to unravel.
I guess then it goes to Coffs Harbour and the happenings there. You and Lewis, there was a lot of media beforehand in terms of interviews and stuff like that as to how it would all play out in terms of, I guess, who needs to finish where, what needs to happen for each of you to win the title. And it was all going smoothly for you until, the crash, I guess, on Sunday, which is an unfortunate thing to have to move on to. From the onboard, it was quite a sickening accident, to be honest. I wasn't sure whether the onboard itself would be shared. And we're forever grateful that you and John are okay after that accident. Have you decided to reflect on it and take learnings from it? I guess, what was your approach in trying to understand that crash that obviously ended your ARC title hopes and obviously the rally?
It was definitely a mistake on my part. The crash itself was just probably searching for 1 or 2 tenths of a second that weren't really there. That particular corner tightened twice. I got through the first tightens, but not the second tightens. I got on the throttle just before it tightened for a second time. And, the note was ultimately correct. It was just me as a driver being way too impatient on the throttle. And, probably jumped on the throttle about 2 or 3 meters before I should have. And that meant that when we apexed that second tightens, I was 1, maybe half to 1 meter offline. And that was enough to leave the road and hit a tree at a fair amount of speed. So my reflection on the accident is basically it is a part of the sport. I haven't had one in a long time, but for sure I'll be very vigilant from now on making sure that we've got all those things noted correctly, and that I'm just being as disciplined as I can as a driver in those faster sections, because I think in rallying you can get away with moments and things where it's a slower piece of road, or maybe there's softer edges. But in an area like that, it's a pretty famous bit of road, Plum Pudding Road. And as soon as you fall off the road, there are trees there. And at the sort of speed you're carrying, there's just no margin for error. So definitely the wrong place to be pushing that hard. But I also think that you don't, you don't achieve those sorts of stage times or anything like I was that weekend without pushing. So I don't shy away from the fact that we were having a go and having a crack. And the reality is that, yes, the championship was sort of lost with that crash, but in a way, championships don't come down to one single thing. They're over the course of an entire season. And if you look at our season, there were other factors that influenced A, me having to push that hard in the first place, and B, losing the championship because of that crash. So yeah, there's lots of different ways of looking at it. I'll definitely take the learnings from it and see if we can use that to propel us into 2023 and hopefully have a better season.
Yeah, and the split times from that stage before the crash were very, very impressive. They were up with Hayden Paddon, if not quicker than him. The question I've sort of had on my mind at times, and then that I've wanted to ask you since, is, were you chasing the APRC title in that moment, given how close it was, I guess, on that final Sunday?
The answer to your question is no. I didn't actually know that we were going to be that close to Hayden until I found out. And I think the next morning someone sent me a screenshot of the split times from the stage. Yeah, I went into that stage with only a 13 or 14 second lead over Nathan Quinn, and I needed to stay ahead of him to win the ARC. And he was extremely quick in the bucket area, which was the stage after the one we were on when we crashed. And he was also extremely quick on the power stage the first time through. So I wanted to make sure that I gave myself some breathing room on that stage, because I knew we could take time out of him on that one, so that I could just focus on the power stage then and getting points in there, because it was quite a complicated point scenario for me. I not only had to beat Nathan in the rally, but then I also had to make sure that I beat Lewis on the power stage. So there was a bit going on, and I just, my mindset before the stage where we crashed was I need to go in here, set a blistering time and make sure that, the win for the rally is sort of sewn up, so that then I can focus on the power stage and the championship. Obviously, as you say, there was also an APRC battle going on there. I think going into that stage, we were separated by less than 2 seconds from Hayden Paddon, but that hadn't factored into my mind at all. I was so prioritizing the ARC at that point. And yeah, whatever happened in the APRC happened. I didn't envisage, I probably didn't envisage being in a close battle with Hayden by that point in the weekend. I thought one way or the other we'd be separated. So yeah, it's not something that was factoring in, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's good to be able to get that answer, because I've spoken to some people and they've mentioned it as well. And I guess to clear the air like that is important. And it's understandable that there's no goal of the APRC when really what you're there to do as a Toyota driver is win the ARC and not necessarily the APRC. Yeah, for John as well, it was a tough accident. He had to go to hospital in the evening. Can you give us an update on him and how he's tracking?
Yep, he was taken to hospital. He had a concussion at the scene, so didn't have much memory of the accident or anything at the time, and they just wanted to check him out in hospital. He was then tested for a whole range of things in hospital, but ultimately cleared to go home Tuesday around lunchtime. So he ended up being in hospital for about 48 hours. His recovery's gone well. He's now got full memory of everything that went on, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but at least, I think it's one of those things where you want to know sort of exactly how these things played out. So for him to have that peace of mind is probably a good thing. And he's fully on the mend, and hoping that we can, we're both hoping that we can have a pre-event test before Rally Tassie and really get back in the groove and make sure that we're both feeling comfortable in the car again, because I know myself that I'll be completely fine. I was able to process what happened pretty quickly, particularly as I remembered the accident completely and I knew exactly what went on. But for John, I think, yeah, he just wants to make sure that he can get back in a car as soon as possible and feel as comfortable as he can, and I guess make sure that he's not got any carryover feelings or a hangover from the crash at all.
Yep. And in terms of the rebuild of the car, I'm aware the roll cage was damaged quite substantially and it moved quite substantially. Are you able to just explain how the guys at Neil Bates Motorsport are going in preparing that one for the end of March, which will come around very, very soon?
So we were pretty lucky in the crash in that, yes, the cage was damaged, but in terms of the chassis, it was only damaged up quite high. So the actual floor of the chassis was completely fine. It was all up behind sort of my head, I guess, where the chassis was damaged. So the car got a new left-hand side put in it. So that's how we repaired the chassis. And the cage had to be completely cut out, and it's currently getting a brand new roll cage put in it now so that it's ready for this year. So yeah, good for us that the chassis wasn't a total write-off, just because I think, if it was a write-off, that creates a lot more hours work. Doing it the way we've done it, where we've been able to repair the chassis and then put a brand new roll cage in, has probably saved us just the right amount of time that we need to have it on the start line for Rally Tassie.
It's a busy off season for your team, obviously building a car for Jamie Luff as well. So things are very busy in the Canberra workshop, I'm sure, at the minute.
That's right. So we got, the Luff car to build, and then as soon as mine comes back from getting its brand new roll cage, it has to be completely assembled from the ground up as well. So yeah, all happening.
All hands on deck. As always, next year, competition will be stronger. You'll be chasing the number one back off Lewis, who will no doubt step up his pace again, as he did throughout 2022. Everything's all in line for Toyota Gazoo Racing Australia again next year with factory backing and all that kind of thing.
Yep, Toyota are back on board for another year in 2023, which is obviously amazing for not only us, but I think for the championship as well. To have the likes of a car company like Toyota involved in our sport is really great, and they really see value in rallying and in the Australian Rally Championship, especially at the moment with how many GR Yaris's and so on they're selling, and they've got a GR Corolla coming out soon. So I think it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for rally fans to be able to get a four-wheel drive turbo version of our car on the road, and it's an exciting time as well for rallying that a company like Toyota is involved in the sport and willing to invest and have us competing at the top level in Australia.
And Launceston to start the season, it's a different time of year to what it has been there previously and when you've competed there yourself. Where do things sit in your mind in terms of the Launceston roads in early autumn?
It'll be amazing because we're not going to have to wear beanies and gloves and jackets and everything to every stage, I hope. They're such incredible roads. The whole area is just like tailor-made for rallying. It's so good. But competing there in June, July has always been tough because it's been so cold. So going there in March, I hope will give a little bit of reprieve from that point of view. And I hope as well it gives us a chance to really engage more with the local fans, because it is tough for them going out in -5 degrees and watching us compete, I think. So yeah, really looking forward to being there at a slightly friendlier time of year and hopefully just enjoying being in that area more, because the roads are amazing. The Tasmanians really embrace the rally and love having us in town. And I think, being there in late March will be just perfect.
And the other main change for the calendar is moving your home round Canberra to the end of the year, like it was during the COVID-affected year of 2020. You did compete in that event, obviously, in 2020. March versus November in Canberra, how does that affect the roads and how does it affect, I guess, the event as a whole?
I think realistically, November has the potential to be extremely hot. It was last time we were here, like you say, in 2020, one of the hotter rallies I've ever done. And the Canberra roads in hot conditions are tough because A, they can be quite dry and slippery. and B, they're quite slow speed. It's probably one of the slower speed rallies we do up in the Brindabella area. And that means that in hot conditions, you're just not getting the airflow through the car that you do on a high speed rally. So for sure, it can be extremely tough on man and machine, but I think Canberra is a great place to finish the year personally. I think if you look at which rallies are the closest to the city and the most engaging for the locals, it's probably Canberra. And I hope that, we can still get really, really good fields by that point in the season, and that, ideally, I don't want the championship to be a thing to fight for, but I'm sure from a rally fan's point of view, they really want the last round to be like it was in Coffs, where the championship's coming down to the wire and there's a lot of interest.
And typically Canberra has been a end of year event as well, as part of the early Asia Pacific Rally Championship. It's been there often, so it won't be the first time it's there. And yeah, there's plenty to look forward to in this year's Australian Rally Championship. In terms of overseas stuff, really quickly, do you have any plans, or are you looking into anything for next year? What's in your mind for that?
No plans at the moment. Certainly nothing set in concrete. Obviously, I'm super grateful for the opportunity I had to go and do Rally New Zealand. And the amount of work it takes just to get on the start line alone is phenomenal. So, ideally, yeah, I'd love to back up Rally New Zealand with a couple of rounds this year, in Europe, but I also need to assess the realities of whether or not that can happen. And, it is just a tough thing to go and do. The amount of money you need to pull together to make it happen is astronomical. So yeah, at the moment I'm fully focused on the ARC and less focused on going overseas. But I guess never say never. I'll keep looking for opportunities and keep trying to make something happen, because I do think that New Zealand was only a glimpse of what I'm capable of at that level. But yeah, I'm just trying to focus on having a really good year domestically, and then and sort of looking at the international opportunities as more of a bonus rather than a must at this point.
And your Toyota aligned, clearly. They've got a new Rally 2 car coming along. You must want to be able to get behind the wheel of that at some point too, whether it be in a competitive form or whether it's in a test. You're smiling here as I mentioned that. Do you want to drive that car, or could you drive that car at some point?
I really want to drive that car, of course. They are in their very, very early stages of testing, but yeah, I've been chatting to them and asking how it's going and talking to them about the various challenges of developing a new car and the fact that it's a 3-cylinder. Obviously, we've got experience with that now, and that is quite different for all of the engineers working on it. So, yeah, I hope I can drive it one day soon. That's for sure. It would be really nice to be one of the first from this part of the world to drive Toyota's new Rally 2 car. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Watch this space.
I think that's a good spot to end it on a positive about a hopeful Harry Bates about running the new Rally 2 car. But yeah, we look forward to that, hopefully, if it comes to fruition. But Harry, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you having a chat to us, obviously about the crash last year and moving forward into this year, which seems just as exciting as what last year was. So thanks again, and we look forward to catching up in Launceston at round 1.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.